Henry VIII. I am famous for many things, like the important things that happened and how many wives I had. I've had 6 wives and they're all different. My first wife I divorced. My second wife I chopped her head off. My third wife died of childbirth. My fourth wife I divorced. My fifth wife I killed. And my sixth wife lived. I killed them and divorced them because they did not give me sons. And the important things that happened are Thomas Cromwell was my chief minister, and when he died, Thomas Wolsey was my chief minister, and when he died, Thomas Cromwell was my chief minister. And when Martin Luther broke into the Catholic Church, he started Protestantism, and after that, Cromwell told me that I could steal money from the Catholic Church. And I was born in 1941 and I died in 1491 and I died in 1547.
Hi, my name is Sally Ryan and I'm the first American woman to go into space. I was born in California and I loved school and sports. I was so good at sports that the boys would let me play on their teams. I was very good in school. My favorite subject was science. I worked hard at everything I did. By the time I finished college, I was Dr. Sally Ride and an astrophysicist. An astrophysicist is a person who studies stars and planets. I applied for the NASA astronaut class of 1978. I was one of the 35 people chosen out of 8,900 who applied. They taught me how to be a flight engineer and pilot. For 2 years, I spent developing and working with the robot arm. Twice, I was a CATCOM, talking and sending instructions to the astronauts in space. The space shuttle I rode in was named Challenger. This would be the 7th space shuttle mission. The jobs I had on Challenger were to do scientific experiments, help put the satellites into orbit, and work the 50-foot robot arm. We were in space for 6 days and traveled for 2.5 million miles. The thing that I'll remember most about the flight is that it was fun. In fact, I'm sure it will be the most fun that I will ever have in my life.
My name is Maria Mitchell. I was born on August 1st, 1818 on Nantucket Island in Massachusetts. I'm the first woman astronomer in the United States. My father's name is William Mitchell and my mother's name is Lydia Coleman Mitchell. They are both Quakers. I have 5 sisters and 4 brothers. I'm the third of 10 children. My father was an astronomer. I was educated mainly by my father. As a small child, I was interested in stars and I was good at math. I learned to read by the time I went to school in 1822 when I was 4. I helped my father when he made observations and I also helped him to correct chronometers for years. When I was 14, I corrected a chronometer for Captain Chadwick all by myself because my father was not at home. When I was 17, I opened my own school and but I had to close it after 1 year because of lack of money. When I was 18, I was offered to be a librarian at the Connecticut's Athenaeum Library. I kept this position for 24 years. On October 1st, 1847, when I was 29 years old, I discovered a new telescopic comet. When I saw it, I was extremely stunned. All I saw was a tiny blurry light like a faint star. A year later, I was awarded a gold medal for the discovery by the King of Denmark. Suddenly, I was world famous. I got a lot of honors. The American Almanac. I got a position in the U.S. Nautical Almanac office to study Venus. I quit this job in 1868. In 1856, I had a chance to go to Europe with the rich man, General Swiss daughter. In London, England, I went to the Greenwich Observatory. I was thrilled when they stood at the point of 0 longitude. I had hoped to see the famous Vatican Observatory, but I couldn't because women were not allowed to go inside. It took me several weeks to get a very, very special permission to go inside in the daytime at the Vatican Observatory. When I was 44 years old, although I did not have a college degree, Matthew Bassar offered me a teaching job at Bassar College, one of the first women's colleges in the United States. He asked me to teach astronomy and mathematics and also to take charge of the college observatory at Bassar College. When I was 47 years old, I became a professor of astronomy and a director of the college observatory at Bassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York. I became a president of the Women's Congress in 1875 and made a speech in which I encouraged all women to enter all professions and to involve themselves in government. Once a year, I had a dinner party with my students. I always encouraged my students to prove their ability, even when they left Bassar College. In 1887, in June 1887, I had my last dome party. The next year, I got ill, so I retired my job.
I am Squanto. Indian brave from the Patuxet tribe. I have no brothers or sisters. It's my mother, father, and my uncle. My uncle is the chief. One day, I saw a ship coming. I ran through my village saying, "White men, white men, white men." My mom said, "Hide in the forest." But I said, "No, I want to meet the white men." So I met them. The captain was John. The captain was Charles Robinson. Charles Robinson was the first American to come to North America. He took me to London. Then I stayed with his mother, and I chose to sleep on the floor because the bed was too soft. Then I was on display for 2 days, and that hurt my feelings because people laughed at me just because I was an Indian. But when I met John Smith, he took me back home. Then he recaptured me, and then he took me to England and put me on a slave market. Then they betted on me until two brothers came and took me. So I had my own rights and my own freedom to do things. Then John Smith took me back, and I showed him how to catch eel and fish and plant corn. I showed him how to plant corn by taking a fish, putting it down, take the corn seed, put it down, cover it, and let it grow. Then I walked along the seashore, and then one fat eel popped out, and I showed him how to catch the eel. Later on, I showed him how to hunt. And other things. By the 1800s, I died.
Hello, my name is Orville Wright. I was born in 1871. You probably know what my brother and I did. That's right, we built the first airplane. It all started when my father brought home an airplane. He threw it up. It stayed up for a while, then came down again. That was the first time we thought of an airplane. Our father let us fix the printing press. It was hard. We had to have patience to fix it. We made many mistakes. We did fix it. When we were older, we opened a bike shop to learn more about mechanics. When we knew enough, we started to design our airplane. We wanted our wings to bend like a shoebox. When we finished designing it, we started to build it. We couldn't find a motor small enough, so we had to build one. We had to have patience for that, too. We flew all our airplanes in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. The first Flyer 1 didn't fly. The second Flyer 2 flew for a short time, and the third Flyer 3 flew the longest. My brother Wilbur died in 1912 when he was 55 years old. Before I died, I saw planes cross every ocean and continent, and across the North and South Poles. I even saw the first supersonic jet. I died in 1948 when I was 77 years old. And this is what Flyer 1 looked like. And it says here about Flyer 3 that it flew for 30 minutes. Flyer 3 flew for 30 minutes. And here's a picture of the place where we flew it. It's Kitty Hawk, and it's right there. And this is how we improved. First we had this. This is the first supersonic jet. Then we had this and this.
My name is Louis Pasteur. I am a doctor of science. I wear a tall black hat, a red jacket, white pants, and black shiny shoes. One sunny day, I was walking through the park, and I was saying, I believe I can, I believe I can. What do you think I was saying that for? I said that because I believed that I could find the invisible enemy, those rabies germs that cause people to get sick. Once I find those rabies germs, I said, I will find a way to kill it. I sat on a bench, still thinking of those rabies germs, and I said once again, I believe I can. When I was walking back to my laboratory, some kids said, "If something is invisible, how can you see it?" I pretended I couldn't hear those noisy children and hurried back to my laboratory on Elm Street in Paris. Where I worked every day. When I was working in my laboratory, people would say, "You'll never do it," as they were peeking into my laboratory to see what I was doing. Meanwhile, back in a far-off land, Germany, a little boy named Joey was poking a stick at a very mean and sick dog. When Joey wanted to go home, he never noticed that the gate door was wide open and the dog could surely come and bite Joey. And that's exactly what the dog did. The dog bit Joey 14 times on the arms and legs. Joey cried, "Help, Daddy, help!" Joey's father came running out to see what had happened to his son. When he found out that he had gotten bitten by a very mean and sick dog, he chased the dog away and took Joey inside. Joey's father knew that if someone had those rabies germs, they would surely die. A few weeks later, the dog died. Joey's mother was reading the newspaper and she found an article about me. They were going to take Joey to my laboratory so I could help to get him better. So they hired a horse and carriage and they drove Joey to my laboratory. When they went by the trees, it seemed as if the trees were saying, "Hurry, hurry, faster, faster." When Joey arrived at my laboratory, Joey's mother said, "We have come a long way to see you. Our little boy has been bitten by a very mean and sick dog." I said I have invented a vaccine that has magical soldiers inside. I told Joey that I would put the magical soldiers inside of his body with a shot. "Shots hurt," exclaimed Joey. I said, "Some do, but not all." "Be brave, Joey," I said as I gave him his shot. When the magical soldiers marched inside of Joey's body, they spotted those rabies germs. They had a war. A war would not be very comfortable inside of someone's body, but the magical soldiers won. When Joey sat up and the magical soldiers were out of his body, they all danced around because they were very happy that I invented a vaccine that could cure those rabies germs. When they went home, everyone was cheering for me and no one was bugging me anymore. I felt better now that no one was bugging me and that I could be left alone in peace. As you can see, I believed in myself.
My name is Benjamin Franklin. I was America's first scientist, inventor, and writer. I became a printer. My name is Benjamin Franklin. I was born in Boston, 1706. I was America's first scientist, inventor, and writer. I became a printer because I love to read and write. I moved to Philadelphia, where I had my own newspaper and where I wrote my own almanac. I started the first hospital in college in Philadelphia. I organized the first fire fighters. I helped. I invented Franklin stove. I invented the Franklin stove and discovered electricity. I helped to write I was in charge of the mail service. I helped to write the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution when I was 81. I died when I was 84. Many people around the world were sad when I died.
My name is Juliet Love. I was born on October 31st, 1860 in Savannah, Georgia. I grew up during the Civil War. My father fought for the rebels and my 3 uncles fought for the Yankees. I lived in Chicago during the war with my grandparents. It was safer there. I have always been curious and asked a lot of questions. I was never like other girls. I never liked ladylike things, like piercing my ears or dressing up. I organized my first club after saving a drowning kitten. It was called the Animal Catchers. We had a secret language, so we put an A after every word we said. I love to write poems. My poem, Little Buddy, was published in a magazine called Meuble Bouclet. In 1886, I married William M. Lowe and lived in Scotland for 26 years. After William died, I met Robert Badger Powell, who founded Boy Scouts. He gave me the idea to form a summer club for girls. So I moved back to America from Scotland in 1912 and started the Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts stand for love, friendship, and love of the outdoors. I hope girls all over the world will experience the Girl Scouts. I died on January 7th, 1927. Hello, my name is Clara Barton. I was born in 1821. I was born to a large family, and all of this family taught me. David taught me how to ride horseback and cross teetering logs. Stephen, Sally, and Dorothy were my tutors. Father specifically taught me geography and history by telling me stories about himself in war because he was a captain. Mother taught me how to cook and also how to milk cows and gather eggs. I was a teacher at 15. I also taught for 15 years. One of my schools in Bordentown, New Jersey was the first public school there in New Jersey. No one had wanted me to found it, but I wanted the boys to get education because the people that were running New Jersey said that had a law that said that there was supposed to be education for everyone, but they weren't doing it. And I told the education building that if you were happy by the end of the year with my school, to pay me, but if you weren't, don't pay me. And so they were happy at the end because I started out with 6 children and grew to 200. At 200, I called my friend Fanny Childs to come in. She took 100, I took the other 100. But when they looked for a man to be superintendent, I moved to Washington, D.C. There, I lived with my sister Sally for a little while. But then, I moved to my own apartment and got my own job at the patent office. And since I was the first woman working there, I wasn't treated very nicely, but I ignored the men there. Then I became interested in politics, and they told me
about the Civil War and how they thought it was going to start, and about slavery. I hated slavery, but I thought all the slaves shouldn't be freed at once because it would be too disorganized. Then, when the Civil War started, I could see the soldiers that were wounded going to the Washington, D.C. hospitals. I found out it was 2 or 3 days before these men got any medical care. I wanted to do something about it. I had to. So, I had to talk to the people that were running in charge of this. I talked to doctors, surgeons, generals, and people in the army. Sometimes I even talked to the president. He said that most people said that I couldn't do it, but I had to. In the meantime, I collected things like roll bandages, blankets, food, and water, and medicines, most important, for these men. I shipped them to. Finally, I got permission to go out into the battlefield. There, I was nursing the sick, and sometimes I was right where the Confederates were. I helped both sides of the war, even Confederates. Finally, the war was over. I had gone to many battles, like Antietam, I just told you about. Antietam is really close to here. South Mountain is too. There's also Hilton Head I went to. There I was able to help people, but at South Mountain Harper's Ferry I wasn't. I was too late. So I got permission from the president to open an office for the missing, because if men had run away or were missing, people thought they had ran away. They didn't think about they might be held hostage or anything like that. Well, I met a man that had been in a horrible prison down in Georgia, Andersville. And he said that he had been a secretary there and had to keep a track of all the people that came into this prison and died. And he had snuck a second copy for himself. So we went down and put graves, which were crosses, over all the men that had died. Just then, my doctor said that I had been overworked by all of this and I needed to rest. So I went to Europe for 3 years. I landed in Switzerland, where the Geneva Accord had just been signed. The Geneva Accord is a document saying that all of the people that were working for the International Red Cross would not be hurt or killed in any way. It also said that there would also be help for all the men that were wounded. The men there wanted me to see the Geneva Accord because the USA did not want to sign it, and it was because of the Monroe Doctrine, which said we would not butt into the affairs of the world. And so they had me look at it. The whole thing was signed because of the Franco-Prussian War, which is going on between France and Germany, which is the Prussia in those days. Instead of resting for this 3 years, I helped the people that were wounded. And when I went back, I tried to convince President Hayes and people in the government to sign the Geneva Accord, but they wouldn't listen because I wasn't a woman. And so I tried to get the public to support me. When President Garfield came along, he said he would support me completely. But when he was getting ready to sign the papers, he was assassinated. So I had to wait until President Arthur came along, and finally someone signed the Geneva Accord. I had been working on the field into my 80s, and it was time for me to retire. The Red Cross had grown too big for me to handle. I had founded it, and it was the high point of my life. Just like my school in Bordentown, others have taken over for me. After I rest a little while, I think I will do some traveling to tell people like you about the Red Cross.
My name is Babe Ruth. I was born in 1895. My real name is George Herman Ruth. I got the nickname, the Babe, from the other players that I played baseball with.
I was born alone. My parents paid no attention to me. I was also sent to a boys' school. At the boys' school, I learned how to play baseball, and I learned how to make shirts. I played for the Orioles in my minor leagues, and I played for the Red Sox, the Braves, and the Yankees in my major league career. In my last game of my career, I hit 3 home runs and 6 RBIs. I hit 60 home runs in 1 year, and that was a record. I hit 714 home runs in my career. I was such a good baseball player, I got added to the Hall of Fame. I died August 16, 1948.
I was born on June 27, 1880. I was a normal baby until about when I was about 1.5. Then I got sick with what was probably scarlet fever. I had a very high temperature. Little by little, I lost my sight and hearing and forgot how to talk. Since I couldn't talk, hear, or see, I began throwing temper tantrums. Since my parents didn't know how to communicate with me, they let me do whatever I wanted. Like at dinner, they let me eat with my fingers and take things from other people's plates. Some people thought that I wasn't smart enough to learn. Those people thought that they should send me away to an institution, which is a hospital for crazy people, but I wasn't crazy. But I did make up some basic signs, like the sign for my baby sister, which is because I usually feel around on her face and she's usually sucking on her fingers. In 1887, when I was 7 years old, Annie Sullivan came to live with me and teach me. She had a very rough time with me because nobody ever told me to behave. She taught me if she wanted me to learn the letter A, she would make the A and she would lay it in my hand. Like in this one picture here, she is signing into my hand. And soon, I wanted to teach my dog to do it. So here I am trying to teach my dog to do it. And then Annie Sullivan, Annie taught me to read Braille, which is a sequence of raised dots. Like, here's a picture of somebody reading Braille. And at that time, there were 5 ways to read Braille. We had to learn 5 ways to read Braille. But I wanted to make sure that all blind people had to learn only one system of raised dots, because it would be confusing. Like if the letter B was 1 raised dot in one system and Z was 1 raised dot in another system, that would be hard to remember. It would be very hard. So I graduated from college and high school, and Annie and I went on tours, and we talked to groups of people. And we told part of my life. Annie told part of my life, and I told part of my life also. Like the way I communicated with people was if people who wanted to talk to me knew the sign language, that they would sign on my hand. Like in this picture, I'm feeling somebody's lips and somebody else is holding, and somebody else is signing on my hand. And if they didn't know the sign language, I would feel their lips lightly. I always wanted to talk, but I never could speak clearly.
and I learned how to write. And I did write some books about myself, like Helen Keller, My Religion. It's about my religion. And this one's called Let Us Have Faith. And I wrote and I could write in Braille. You can write Braille by using a special machine, which is like a hole punch, but it doesn't punch holes. It just raises dots. And I did write with square letters, like I wrote this one letter one day. And I died in 1868 when I died in 1968 when I was almost 88.
Hi, my name is Abraham Lincoln. I was born on February 12, 1809. When I was little, my family and I moved a lot. We finally settled in Illinois. When I was 9, my mom died. I may not look like it, but I grew to be 6 feet 9 inches tall before I was 19. My first job was a clerk at a store, and at night I studied law. I got my nickname Honest Abe when the store I owned went out of business, but I paid off all its debts. In 1834, I was elected to Illinois State Legislature, where I served 4 consecutive 2-year terms. In 1836, I became a lawyer. In 1842, I married Mary Todd and had 4 sons later on. In 1846, I was elected to the House of Representatives. In 1855, with slavery a political issue, I decided to get back into politics because before I lost interest in them. I made my first bid for the Senate when I spoke out against slavery. In 1859, I tried for a seat in the Senate against Stephen Douglas, but I lost. The debates with Douglas gained me a national reputation, which resulted in my nomination for president in 1860. On April 1861, the Civil War began. On September 22nd, 1861, I issued my Emancipation Proclamation, which freed all slaves. This led to the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. In 1864, I was elected president. And before I was elected president, so I was elected president for a second term. In April 1865, the Civil War was over. And on April 14th, 1865, I was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth while attending a play at the Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C.
Hello, my name is Sally Wright. I was born on May 26, 1951. When I was little, I would get up early and race my dad to the newspaper. When I got the newspaper, I would race my dad home, curl up on the couch, and turn to the sports section. I like sports. I like playing softball, soccer, baseball, and football. was the only one that could be on the boys softball team. Do you know why I'm famous? I was the first American woman in space. On the STS-7, the 7th shuttle mission, the seconds counted down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then, me and 4 other members of the STS-7 blasted off. Almost 500,000 people came to watch the 5 members of the STS-7 blast off. Did you know my husband was an astronaut too? Now you know that I was the first American woman in space.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Fry. I was born in 1840. My dad was a British banker. I was a Quaker. I wished I was a plain Quaker, and when I married Joseph Fry, I became a plain Quaker. I helped the people in the jail be more alive and not mad that they were a mad person. I helped them be more nice and not unnice to the people in the jail together. I died in 1940.
Hello. You might not know who I am, but you might know some of my friends. Peter Rabbit, Jemima Puddle Duck, Mrs. Rabbit, Mrs. Tiggywinkle, and my favorite, the Tailor of Gloucester. In case you haven't guessed, my name is Beatrix Potter. I was born in 1866. My hometown was London. My family was so strict that my only playmate was my brother Bertram, who was 5 years younger than I. In that time, girls weren't allowed to go to school, so I was educated at home by a governess. The only time I found happiness was when my family went on vacation in Scotland. Bert and I would go into the woods and secretly bring back dead animals to sketch and paint with watercolors. When I was 15, I started keeping a diary in my own secret code. I never had to fear the prying eyes of grown-ups. When my second governess, Annie Carter, moved away, her oldest son, Noel, got very sick. Annie couldn't entertain Noel because she had to attend the other children. I felt sorry for Noel, so I wrote him a letter about 4 bunnies named Flopsy, Mopsy, and their brother Peter Rabbit. After that, the other more children wanted story letters too, so I was very busy at that time. Then I had an idea. I borrowed the letters I wrote and started making them into books. My family didn't want me to publish them, but I did anyway and became a great success. When I was 38, I became very good friends with the Wands, the family that was publishing my books. I was making good friends, and for the first time in my life, I was finding happiness. My closest friend was Norman Warren. He asked me to marry him, but my parents were against it. Then Norman, who had been in poor health for many years, died, and my happiness vanished. To get over my sorrow, I started writing another book called Mrs. Tiggywinkle. Since I loved the country, I decided to buy a farm called Hilltop Farm. Then, since Hilltop Farm was a little too small and I needed some more space, I bought another one called Castle Farm. While Castle Farm was being repaired, I fell in love with William Heelis, my lawyer. I married against my parents' wishes, and I became Mrs. William Heelis. I kept buying land until I owned over 4,000 acres.
When I was 77, I died leaving everything I owned to the National Trust. If you ever visit England, please stop by and visit my house. Everything is as I left it.
Hello, my name is Quanto. I am of Texan Indian. I live near Newark, now called Plymouth, Massachusetts. I was born there around 1591. I always wanted adventure in my life. In 1605, I saw a boat. It came to shore. The Englishmen were on it. I heard a cry from another Indian in the forest. When I heard the cry, I leapt to my feet, because I wanted to be the first to give the news. I ran to my tribe. When I got to my tribe, I shouted, "The Englishmen are coming! The Englishmen are coming!" Everyone looked out of their homes. I went to my house and asked my mother. She didn't want me to go, but my father said, "Well, let him go anyway." So early that next morning, I got up and I went to see the Englishmen. I heard a fire stick shoot. I thought the Englishmen had shot at me, but they had shot a duck instead. I fell face down in the sand. Someone picked me up and spoke my language. His name was Charles Robbins. He introduced me to Captain George Wyman's and said, "We are your friends." They asked me if I wanted to go over there. I said, "Yes, oh yes." I wanted to go over to London. I said, "Yes, oh yes." So the next day, I got up and I got into the ship. We sailed over to London. In London, I stayed there for 9 years. I learned to speak English on the boat and in London. In London, there were tall buildings. Charles Robbins kept me for 9 years, then found two boats that were going in the same direction, heading home. I took one of the two boats. The name of the two captains were Captain John Smith and Captain Thomas Hunt. I took Captain John Smith's boat. Near Cape Cod, the two boats split off in two different directions. I went north, which was Captain John Smith's boat. I walked south. It took me 3 days to go get where my tribe was when I got caught by one of Captain Thomas Hunt's traps. He took me over to Spain and sold me into slavery. In Spain, I was sold to two monks that bought me. They told me to go to London so I could get a better chance of getting home. So I went to London in 1615 or 1616. In London, I found a boat. It went to Newfoundland. Then it took me home. The name of the captain of the boat was Captain Thomas Brown. When I got to where my tribe was, I saw nothing except one of my mother's broken pots. I was sad because I wanted to see my family. I walked into the forest. One day I came to a hunter. He took me to his tribe. He let me meet Chief Massoy, the chief of the tribe. I got used to the tribe, then one day I just didn't feel it. So I went into the forest. And one day, Okomu, the one that found me in the forest a year ago, came and told me, "See, the pilgrims have come over and we want you to help them talk to us." I went to the pilgrims and said, "We are your friends." I came back and said, "It is safe to go meet the pilgrims." I saved the pilgrims. If I hadn't saved the pilgrims might have died. Without me, there would not have been a first Thanksgiving, and they might not have survived. I helped the pilgrims grow corn and to catch eel to catch, to know where to hunt, and how to build warm houses. I always got adventure in my life. I died in 1622, a year right after the first Thanksgiving. The end. My name is Leonardo da Vinci. I was born in a city named Vinci. I took my city's name for my last name. It was 1452 when I was born. I was very good at drawing pictures. I drew pictures of plants, flowers, birds, and insects that I saw in countryside near my home. I wasn't only an artist. I was also an architect, scientist, musician, sculptor, inventor, and mathematician. I was very curious about almost everything. My drawings helped me to understand how many things worked. I designed plans for beautiful buildings, churches, even whole cities. When I was a teenager, my father took me to art school. My teacher was a famous painter named Andrea del Bellaccio. When I was about 20 years old, he asked me to help him with a painting. I painted an angel. It was only a small part of the painting, but everyone thought it was the best part. My teacher was surprised and stopped painting. My style was unusual for the time. When I painted my pictures not flat looking but three-dimensional, people had movement. They were not stiff looking. They looked real. I used shadows, blending, and lights to make my paintings realistic. Other artists learned from me. Some people consider my greatest work The Last Supper, which showed Jesus with his closest friends, used done for a dining room used by monks of a church. My most famous painting was the Mona Lisa. I only painted few pictures after drawing her. In fact, some of my paintings never even finished. I just didn't have the time to complete them. I had so many other things to do. Remember, I was a Renaissance man. I was inventing my weapons, machines, studying math, music, and while designing churches and cities. Sometimes I didn't do a very good job. One time it chipped off, and another time it cracked and people looked old and wrinkled, but I enjoyed trying. I died in France in 1519.
Hello, my name is Eleanor Roosevelt. I was born on October 11, 1884. I had a very interesting childhood. I went to school in England. When I was little, I was very shy. I had an imaginary friend. As you can see, I had a very interesting childhood. When I got married, it changed my life. I got married to a man named Franklin Roosevelt. He was my third cousin and very nice. We had 5 children. I like to sail and watch my children swim. Then, my husband was elected governor. Since he had another job, I had to help him with his jobs. As you know, it changed my life when I got married. My husband, Franklin, was elected president in 1932. Since he was elected, I was known as First Lady. We cared about people. We cared about them so much. We tried to get whites and blacks to get together. We cared about them so much that we tried to make new laws to get them together. But then one day something terrible happened. My husband caught polio. Polio, his legs were paralyzed because of his polio. I went many places that hardly anyone went. But then one day, this World War II started. It all began when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. I went to visit the sick soldiers. I didn't only visit them, but when I came home, I called them to see how they were doing. But one day, my husband died because of his polio. I was filled with sorrow. During my years as First Lady, I was very important. I was very lonely after Franklin died. I went to visit my grandchildren to cheer me up. They loved me very much, but I said that I had to leave because there are many children who need my help. So I went to go see and help the handicapped and the homeless children. Then one day I died on November 7, 1962. As you can see, I was very lonely after Franklin died.
Hello, my name is Florence Nightingale. Auntie Johnson wrote a book about my contributions to medicine. I changed the way sick people got the help they needed. I am named for the city of Florence, Italy, where I was born on May 12, 1820. Later, I moved to England with my parents, and that is where I grew up. When I was growing up, I helped animals when they were sick or seriously injured. I would help them regain their strength, and that is how I got into medicine and nursing. I have always loved to take care of people that were in poor health. After many years of arguing with my parents, I finally became a nurse and eventually was put in charge of a small hospital in London. 1 year later, the Crimean War started. I was asked by the British government to lead a group of 38 nurses into the war zone. We traveled on a ship from Italy to the Crimean Peninsula located in the Ukraine. When I got there, I was astonished at what I saw. Men were lying all over the place. There were rats crawling around, leaky hallways, men lying on dirty floors. What a mess. I had to do something about this. I helped the soldiers by making them new bandages and new improved beds, while cleaning up the hospital instruments the doctors were using. And I also cleaned up the hospital. I also helped the men by talking to them and working out their problems. Nobody had ever thought to do these things before. I helped save lives of thousands and thousands of soldiers. After the war, I started a school for nurses and tried to improve conditions in hospitals.
I had a long active life and lived until the age 90 and died in 1910. Soldiers called me the lady with the lamp because of all my contributions to medicine. I am also known as the mother of modern nursing.
Bonjour, je suis Jacques Cousteau. That means, hello, I am Jacques Cousteau. I was born in Saint-André-de-Quebec, France on June 11, 1910. I am a deep sea diver. When I was a little boy, I had to change schools a lot because I moved so much. I also had to change schools because of mischief. Once I broke 17 windows and had to go to another school. I also liked to build things. Even when I was a little boy, I built an electrical car. In high school, I became a sailor. I went to Sinaloas College in Italy where I studied for the French Naval Academy. There, when I graduated, I was ranked second out of 1,000 sailors. One day, a friend showed me a pair of goggles and how they could help me see better underwater. I tried them on, and they worked perfectly. I wanted to invent a way to make diving easier and safer. Diving was dangerous because the hoses connected to the diver to the boat could get cut, and then the diver would drown. I had an idea to make a device that would let divers carry air safely on their backs in tanks. With a little help from a friend, I invented the aqua. When I tried my invention out and it worked, I was so happy I did somersaults in the water. My ship, the Calypso, is the most up-to-date research ship afloat. From it, we have studied shipwrecks, made underwater movies, looked for oil, and studied every kind of marine life I could find. Now in my 80s, I am mostly concerned about pollution because half of the pollution ends up in the sea. During my lifetime, half of the pollution has ended up in the sea. So, I made the Cousteau Society, which works for anti-pollution laws all over the world. Adieu, that means goodbye.
Hi, my name is Vincent Edward Jackson. I was born on November 30th, 1962. I was the 8th child of my family. 2 more children were born after me. All of the children, including my mom, all of us, including my mom, lived in a 3-roomed house. My dad lived on the other side of town. My mom worked as a maid in a hotel. My dad worked in a factory. I loved trouble. It was my favorite thing to do. Whenever a bike was stolen or a window broken, everyone came looking for me. Every time I went home, I walked past this old minister's farm, and he always had the pigs out. I would pick up a rock and throw it at a pig. And then all the other people would start picking up rocks and throwing them at the pigs. And when we left, there was probably only one pig left alive. Some people said I would end up in jail before I was 21. When I was in college, I loved baseball, And then I signed up for football. Although I was not very good at baseball, so I just played football. My highest score was 32 home runs and 6 touchdowns. I got selected to go into the major leagues. For football, I played for football. I played for the Raiders. And for baseball, I played for the Royals. For football, I played for the Royals. At first, I started out with the Miami Chicks. Then, the Royals decided to take me. For baseball in the major leagues, I got $200,000. And in football for the major leagues, I got $500,000. When I was 6, I got the nickname Boarhog. Soon it was shortened to just plain Bo. Then finally, the Royals took me and they kept me, and I didn't have to go back to the Miami Chicks. I was playing baseball and football. One day when I was playing baseball, there was a beer van. There was a beer van, and all the people that were in it were drinking beer and laughing at me. So I smacked the ball, it zoomed up, and I hit a pop-up. It was a home run. But the ball, it came down and hit the beer van. The beer van tipped over and all the people got out. Then they didn't laugh at me again. One day I was driving when I worked for a bank because both seasons were over. And I was going to the bank because I was late, and I ran into this lady's car. She got all upset, but then she found out who I was. And she said that she wouldn't worry about it, and the next game I went to in the season, she was there and she was cheering for me. Then I met Linda. Soon we got married and had a son named Garrett. I gave him a nickname, Spud. As you remember, I had a nickname too, Boarhog, and then it was shortened to Bo. Linda was almost about to get her degree. And I was only 3 classes back from getting my own. So I decided to quit and go back to college and get my degree so I could help troubled kids just like I was.
Hello, my name is Robert E. Lee. I was born in 1807. It was a great honor to be a leader because they fought in the Revolutionary War. and we were great fighters. I When I was a little kid, I lived in a house. I was born in the same room as two signers of the Declaration of Independence. Each room was painted a different color. I like to ride horses. One day my father got arrested. In a year or so, he was able to get out. Then we moved to Alexandria. But I didn't care. And one time, my dad went to his cousin's and he got arrested again, and he was sent to jail. Soon we got the story. His cousin had written the story in the newspaper, and people were mad about it. Then they came to his house to get him, and my dad can't resist a fight, and he got into it. He fought a few shots to calm it down, but it got the fight worse. And so he went to jail, and soon he got out. And this time he went away, and I never saw him again. And my family got sick, and I went to military training at West Point, and when I graduated, I got an award for being the best student in my class, and I got to choose which branch I wanted to be in. I chose an engineer. And soon after that, I went back to see my family, and I was back just in time to witness my mother's death. And then I married Mary Ann Custis, and we had children. Robert and Mary Custis, boy will be called Rooney, and some more. There were 7 in all. And soon I was got to go to the Mexican War. And there I had to get some men across a mountain that seemed impossible. And then when we had almost took over the Mexican capital, I was taking messages from the men that were at the Capitol and General Scott, and when I was going back and forth, I was shot. And then I was given medical aid, and then marching to the opposite side of the river, and it was going to plug up the river, so I took care of that. And then I was called to Texas, and there was nothing to do there but drive back Mexican bandits. And then on April of 1861, the Civil War began, and I was a general then. And first the Union sent a General McClellan, and he just attacked, and he just attacked and scattered all of the men and drove them back into the Union, destroyed them. And we did the same with the other two generals that they sent, General Pope and General Burnside. And then I let one of my men ride for a little while, and by accident at Gettysburg he bumped into the Union where General Hooker was stationed, and we had a war with him, including where there was on the battlefield, on Cemetery Ridge, Seminary Ridge, Big Round Top and Little Round Top. There were battles, and that led to Hooker's defeat. And then they sent in Grant. He went around by boat through the Atlantic Ocean and came around under us. Then he stationed some men in North Carolina right under Virginia, which was right under us. We were in Virginia. And then Grant came and met up with them, and they started